So this past week, I finished my little indie game, Annie's Cross, and I'm honestly pretty disappointed in how it turned out. I find the gameplay loop really boring. Still, I don't regret making and finishing this little game, and with this video, I wanted to talk to you about what had happened. What had caused me to go from liking this game and being genuinely interested in what was going on with it and how I could improve it, to now feeling kind of sad, and despite feeling sad, how I managed to pull through to actually finish the game, as I feel like that's super important. But in order to do all of that, I'm going to have to take you back to when I first started to feel like I was being pulled apart, like two parts of me were trying to fight for control. You see, I started this game back in April of 2023 with the idea that I would only spend a month and make something super simple. Well, considering that this is now October, that didn't quite work out as planned. Despite that, I still felt like I was making good progress through the months and was honestly pretty excited for what would come next in the game. Now, a few months ago, when I released the Why I Failed video, that video really took off and I became incredibly thirsty for knowledge because I did not understand its success. See, before that video, I was lucky to even get 20, 30 views on a video, and I think my best at the time was around 100. That Why I Failed video did showcase my honest thoughts and feelings, but even despite that, I had zero idea of why that video took off, because in comparison to videos that would come later, I spent probably the least amount of time on the title, the thumbnail, and the script for that video. This would lead me down a rabbit hole of watching educational videos, reading books, all in an attempt to figure out why. Why had that video become popular? And before I knew it, those questions would become an obsession, and that obsession would become a distraction from what I really wanted, which was to make video games. And at that time, I did not think too much about that obsession for the YouTube knowledge, but before I knew it, it was of course time to release another video, the one after I decided to do on the Steps of Divynia, because I feel like I neglected that project too much, and I felt like I was letting down not only myself, but the artist who is still working on that project with me today. And when I released that video, it did not do so well. In a way, I kind of figured this would happen for several different reasons. First, it was a different game, not related to Annie's Cross, but also second, not knowing why the other video did so well, and the fact that it was a kind of rushed job, considering I was too busy trying to figure out what made a good video rather than just trying to make a video. But of course, that would lead me to another problem, which related from the first, which was after getting a chance to work on the Steps of Divynia more, I felt like even after those few weeks had gone by and I found the perfect jump, I still didn't feel like I had done enough to work on a project that I considered my dream project. Thus, I went ahead and decided that I would start trying to work on it daily, even if it was just for an hour or two. So this theme would continue more and more as I would decide that I would want to join a game jam, because I started feeling really alone working on several different projects by myself. Plus, I figured at worst this would only just be a mini distraction because, well, the game jam only lasted 10 days. And sure enough, it was nice to have a chance to work with other people. However, what was not okay was what happened right before the game jam would even start, and that was the fact that Unity decided to introduce runtime fees, and my desire to switch engines, as Unreal Engine was something I was wanting to use eventually anyway, which meant I needed to go back and learn more about Unreal, as well as starting the project over. So by this time, not only was I learning YouTube, learning more about Unreal Engine, and trying to start the Steps of Divynia's codebase and level design from scratch, which also meant trying to fix up that GDD, not only to mention I had a part-time job. Yeah, that's a lot. You'll also notice that I didn't once mention Annie's Cross. That is because by this time, I hadn't even touched the game for about 3 weeks, not even been just for 10 minutes a day. I became really distant to the project. There were so many other things that I needed to learn. So with all of these distractions, it was more like instead of trying to balance just a few plates, I was increasing the stack, which was making it harder and harder to go about business as usual. And then when I looked back at Annie's Cross, instead of seeing this nice, wonderful thing that I had been working on, I only remembered the problems that I was encountering and all of the issues that had come throughout my time developing the game. Thus, instead of being motivated to work on it and feeling excited, I decided to push it off, that it could wait until another day. A day became a week almost became a month, and it was getting closer to the time that I would need to make the next Annie's Cross video that for the past month I had said would be the last video for this game, the final devlog. So I sat down, I booted up the Unity hub, and I looked at the project. For that day, I walked away. This meant that if I wanted to work on the game, that I would pretty much have to force myself to do so. And I feel like once you get to that point, it becomes a very slippery slope to putting the game down forever and starting a new project, or stopping game dev entirely. It wouldn't be until I got closer to the time for this video to be released that I decided, no, I actually have to do this, and that I would sit down once more, click on the project, and open it up. And that's when I noticed I wasn't feeling fun in this project anymore. The game's puzzles were just really straightforward, and it was super easy to figure out. Also, the enemy didn't feel too threatening, and it seemed really easy to avoid. I ended up deciding to increase the amount of fear that the enemy would give you if it came into contact and collided with the player, but still, I was able to go through the entire game without even being hit once. This might have been partially luck, and it also might come into play that I know exactly what to do, where to go, thus avoiding some of the challenges that a new player may face. Still, it doesn't matter what kind of excuses I give, I still found it really boring, which made it hard to really keep working on it. And even the thing that I thought I would like most about this project, the text, just felt really boring and jumbled, like it was just put in there to serve a purpose or to check a checklist item off rather than being there for any specific reason. And that's because while it does hint at Annie's life, like how she chooses to live, what she chooses to do, and what's going on in her life, players don't really have a reason to care. And without that reason to care, I can see most players just going in and either just exiting out of the game or just doing the puzzles and finishing it without interacting with many of the objects inside the game. By the way, if you find that you fall victim to some of these traps or want some free advice from my indie studio journey, please consider signing up for my mailing list. There, you will receive free monthly goodies that give you some actionable advice or free assets to help you navigate indie game dev. And it will allow you to stay up to date on more of the behind-the-scenes stuff that's happening at my studio. You can sign up at our website, linked in the description below. Now, I realized at this point that I could spend a few more months and really try to iron out these issues using this video as an explanation for why the game wouldn't be released as early as I thought it would, and part of me felt okay doing that. The things that I would try to fix would be including fixing the clock and the time, so that way it's set automatically to the time that the player boots up the game based on their own local computer's time, fixing the enemy so it's more of a threat, and finally making the puzzles a little bit more challenging and giving more thought to the design behind them, so that way they wouldn't be impossibly hard, but would still prove more of a challenge than let's just try things until it clicks. However, I had to take a step back and really think about it. I really need to start getting some of this stuff off of my plate, or I'm just gonna burn out from all of it. This means moving forward, I needed to be really careful with what I decide to do, and honestly just picking out the most important stuff, letting other things go. And while I now know how to improve the game and some ideas, as I mentioned, partly thanks to you all with comments that you've left, I also have to remember why I started this game in the first place and stick to that. You see, Annie's Cross, again, was just meant to be a small, simple game so I could level up my skills and get the feeling of what finishing a game on my own without following a tutorial felt like from start to finish. So, with that being said, and having a clear answer, what should you do if you're in a similar position? And how did I finish my game despite all of these negative feelings behind it? Well, first, as I mentioned, I recommend figuring out what you really want to do with your time that you have available. It might be helpful to make a list, something like this that I have here in front of you and just be honest with yourself. Cut out the stuff that doesn't add to your own future and start thinking about your ROI. Basically, what can you invest in with your time that you would get the most return on that investment? And that means focusing on the dreams that you really want, putting other things to the side that you might be able to come back to in the future. Second, part of the reason I really think I was able to complete this game was thanks to you all and this YouTube platform. I feel like if I did not at least complete the game, I'd be letting you all down and not living up to an example that I hope to set here on this channel. And even though things did end up taking longer than I thought, planned, and even told you all, I do realize that that particular thing is something I need to work on for my own health. Finally, the last thing I can recommend to you is just honestly be a bit kinder to yourself. For me, I kept reminding myself that this was my first attempt without any real guidance, thus there were bound to be hiccups along the way. I was lucky in that this game is free and will be on itch.io. And even if this isn't your first game, or even if it's a commercial game and you're running into these types of hitches, just remember that everyone makes mistakes, as we are human. Therefore, I think it is ridiculous to expect a great outcome each time. But it does really highlight how important early prototypes and playtesting is to the whole game dev process. Also, if you want to play the game, I will leave the link in the description below. So how about you? Can you relate to any of these problems? How do you overcome them in your own development cycle? Or are there other issues that you face that you would like to discuss? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you there. And with that being said, in order to complete our games, we do need to be more mindful of our project and what is happening around us. I'm finding that honestly keeping an open mind and spending a bit more time reflecting rather than doing on projects and what is happening around me be extremely important. Anyhow, if by the end of this video you still feel like you're struggling with game development and you're not really sure why, then I suggest you check out this video where I talk more about the struggles that I faced prior to my YouTube journey and how I started to overcome my own personal fear. Hopefully it can help you on your journey as well. And until next time, remember, keep creating and spark the imagination. Take care, friends. Goodbye.